the team on the playing position right now with like support Natsu versus like the deal fight about begin like I'm looking like in this fight like I'm putting Natsu like totally unlocking a bit of it like current growth potential and I'm looking like using that itself like I'm looking like Natsu will be like okay or an antithetic the real land doesn't seems ego and all concentrate with all the getting so like the scenario that I'm looking like I'm looking like Natsu that seems in badly injuring Gajeel and then in that scenario to be like Gajeel totally lying on the floor, struggling and slowly unable to let move the shot. It's like the scenario that I'm going to affected. And while this would be happening, like I'm looking at in the case of that Joker's fight against that and that Elfman and Maran like the others that I'm looking at in that fight, like I'm looking like those usually that for foreign and defeating us and like one by one like I'm looking then I'm looking to be like Jose Elfman turning into his like field sword transformation and trying to like attack Jose, but still like Jose would be like on a totally different similar level of strength. Maybe like Jose have not reached that the level of like wizard same value and so like even that element that before power as well transformation attack as well to do that not the cases so the end but the defeating like the soul of the soul of that as well as well it's like no scenario that I'm doing and then like I'm going to say great I think as well as that so like I'm going to 30 15 today and all of them and the numbers are like Jose but like scenario to be like Joker might be about to take Isaac Sa of that Maran's life at that point. It's like the scenario that, or like I'm looking like those way like showing some sort of like an ultimate powerful attack. It should have like it might have like the power to like go a simple attack to that eliminate that awesome all of those other races that the scenario that I'm doing. But like I'm looking by then like I'm looking like match of showing up is like the scenario that I'm looking to have macro and those are like would be most likely and then the like how macro would be that showing up to like the and entering that present the and space without being seen by the other great number of characters members outside like I'm looking most likely for it to be through that macro of we actually having like invisible flow kind of like it's not a friend, so like macro totally using like a magical item that would like turn macro invisible. It's also like a publisher that I'm doing. So like I'm doing like through such way like I'm doing without like the and after like that great number of team members that outside of that is built is like I'm doing them without them seeing macro then I'm doing macro entering into that fantasy skills, giant fantasy skills that I'm doing like macro totally as like the scenario that I'm doing is like as Joker would be about to take the life of like either Asa or Mara or like all of them, Asa, Mara and Elfman and Gray and all of them then right then like I'm looking that macro totally blocking that attack is like the scenario that I'm doing and like basically that macro totally sacrificing life to like save like Asa as well as like Gray as well as Elfman and Mara is like this scenario that I'm looking at while and that way like I'm looking like macro takes that and like macro by like the scenario that I'm looking. So the attention for like at that point like a macro in that side we're trying to get back to that also. So like I'm looking like that would be like such an extreme shock for like not only that Mara and like X-Men, but also like I'm looking like at that point when like macro would be like inflicted by like the powerful attack like macro, especially like the current situation of macro being like macro not having any of his like magic powers or much of his like magic powers or anything like much more than his magic powers or anything like I'm looking like macro that getting consumed by that powerful attack and basically macro as like macro in dying some of them like I'm looking right then itself like and everything like Natsu by then like I know that Lucy by then would have like totally Natsu would have like totally defeated like Gajeel by then and like Natsu around with like Lucy would be like come downstairs and I'm looking like at that point while macro would be dying in front of all of them like Natsu as well as Lucy as well seeing that like the scenario that having the software of the game and everything. So like I'm looking like uh, so like I'm looking at that point like for Mara, Arza as well as like Mara, Arza as well as Elfman and all of them being in that caught in that absolute shock and basically would be like gathering together like next to that in next to that macro I think that he will be able to write but like I'm the same time like I'm looking together you know like I'm looking like Natsu be totally like that seeing that would be like that shock of it would be like causing Natsu to like react differently because like I'm thinking that if Natsu and the thing would be that absolute pure extreme rage towards like both it was like I'm putting out the straight away jumping towards like the way and like fighting closer like the another that I'm looking and it will be only at that point that I'm going to like in terms of like Natu's current pro levels of strength, like Natu he able to like unlock that pro levels of like Natu like current levels of strength, especially learning everything. Using that like Natu is only attacking Jose and like Natu kind of like injuring Natu be like launching such extremely intense attack uh at like Jose and then like during that fight like I'm looking straight away like Natu even injuring Jose to like a certain extent and to a certain extent like and I would commit that fight to be intense but still I was trying Jose only eventually overpowering and defeating Natsu and like then and by then like I was looking like my crowd realizing and I was looking like uh, as like Jose would be and like I was looking macro that's still like totally like would be like weakening that mentally like weakening like all of like the others like Asra and Elfman and all of the other friends, they won't be able to like they will be in that shock and they won't be able to do anything while Nasu alone will be fighting afterwards like so they next in the inspiration and like the scenario that I'm looking at. So like I'm looking at that fight for this usually I'm looking that I go there even over for into even over for Nasu as well and I'm like the about to take Nasu's life. At that point is when I'm looking that with the Luther like basically from like the pop like I'm looking at her to like finally like that guilt that would be that probably being would be within her because like definitely one of the conditions were like Macro and her would be that married might have gotten married to like the past certainly not but like I'm looking like Macro might open like basically without like setting like the reference to them looking like a Macro might open like head out to that forest and like meet with that with like white to me that it in the sun definitely many preparation so like I'm looking at Macro might have always told her how that the theoretic skill member, maybe each of them are like a macro count and all this is definitely one membership. So like I'm definitely like still I'm looking like they to that definitely I'm still in the many places like in the different parts like need macro as well as lecture might have been in like the same case where like I'm looking like one of the executive members maybe it might have been Joseph. Joseph will back then might have been like a guild member on the way to change it as like macro as well as like her the shopper as like back then it's a new member and might have been used to that Joseph betrayal that one of like the guild, one of the guild members might have even died of the and one or even more of that the guild members might have died and recently that will the guild might have lot of matters when and it might be then that ambassador like the big of woman like she might have been fed up with like the certain and everything and might have decided to like escape and basically like skated on that and live within that force might have been what like happened. And it might be since then like that macro might have that split where like macro might have been like against stuff like viewpoint at that point and like macro might have wanted to like create like another guild and do better create another guild and like that might be how the clicker justice might have informed the new and even if like macro creativity that like macro might often like basically secretly that goes to that box and that needs that why that is of woman you know it might have told about like how like teachers in the where there's are like such like $25 and everything so like and like even though she might have been initially totally against that macro decision and pushing macro might have been to it at that point being like a guild master and everything. So like Dumbledore still eventually all kind like even up to deep down might have started let's see that the characters guild members like kids as well as also like my friends. But like this might be the reason for like basically since like my coach just now had left that with Dr. Woman and basically my coach had said something along the lines that to that protect like certain or something along the lines. Like I'm looking like since even after that, like basically that it Dr. Nicholas Bowman was kept staying in that very same form and not like going along with like macro to like help macro out even while she knows that basically macro currently have absolutely no strength. So like the wasn't kept like macro like dying ending up dying like this macro goes up there into like the middle of the sport war against like the kind of way like even by knowing all that like I'm just like I'm looking like her to like still live India, but like continue to have come up from like the different parts of like being part of it, the field. And back then, like during that whole different incident that might have happened, like the part like something she might have been on the verge of that, with like the Sana confront that was narrow. So and was something like, but like even way beyond that, more than that, like it may be that for betrayal from like a crew member of that guild member that like he might have never expected to like happen and all that like that might have eventually traumatized you. So like I'm doing like it would be like I'm considering the something like I'm looking like it would be after like a macro test like and one flag. So like she would be like first really hesitant to like basically that go up to like the war along like macro and help macro out. So like, but still I'm looking like to the after like macro stuff. Like I'm looking like once like through that process attack like macro behind like at that point the system was different like even from like the pop like he might be totally able to like sense that as of like macro. It's definitely my framework. So like at that point itself like I'm looking like that skill would be like too much work up. And I was like at that point itself like slowly setting off from that course to like the middle of the bar and put an end to like the bar is like the so even if it's through her husband's version of life will be along the lines of like the mindset which like I'm looking for going up to the war. So like I'm looking like the scenario where like that list of going up to like the war will be once like macro will be after like macro so that and once like Jose and an next generation has to be like fighting and like fight for into like eventually ending up with that uh those are about to take Natsu's life. And at that point, like I'm assuming that absolutely no one will be able to like do anything, but like as like Joseph will be able to take Natsu's life, like I'm assuming that at that point, like like the scenario can be like which not woman, like basically launching some sort of like an alternate but that which that Joseph won't be even seeing her showing up there. So like I'm assuming that that argument is like something badly and she's injuring Joseph, like the scenario that happened. And that's stopping Joseph and like Joseph due to that extreme bad injury, like I'm like Jose, they're actually deciding to like retreat for the time being, and that way like Jose like retreating like the scenario that I'm looking for, and my victory emerged, and I'm looking like that extreme, and I'm looking like that rich of woman would be like seeing like the dead body of like macro right there, and I'm looking like that guilt would be far too much for her, but like I'm looking like even though she uh the last thing she would want to do would be to actually guild master, like be part of that guild or be like guild under the like her due to that extreme guild like her trying to make up for that all that gives by trying to that basically to take macro place and to that basically so that like this macro can be like happy from like the heaven on seeing like her like not abandoning like the third skills and basically like that way like I'm looking like have ending up becoming like after macro stuff like I'm looking like the witch doctor woman is like the person whom I'm going to be like the next master of like the third is like living the scenarios that I'm going to so like the fully kind of collaboration right now as for like why exactly that and Natsu as well as like and Gajeel would be also for like Dragon Slayers like I'm looking like might be due to like them both that possibly in like the past having possibly having like slaves dragons in like the past so like my information was like even while Natsu loves to generate so much like nature dragon so much like skill in like the world of like the fairy tale and like and there will be like all sorts of dragons like there will be like the like gentle dragons like it will be like the dragon there will be multiple types of like dragons like different kind of like nature that you know the origins like so like the category of like the dragons of like the type of name would be that of like gentle nature gentle and kind and empathetic nature but like there will be also some other vicious and dangerous dragons out there of like different type of like issues and pain like there are certainly members so like I'm sure like Natsu might have slayed like so dishes of pain of kinds of like in like the past. Certainly member and that might have been how that Natsu might have earned the name Dragon Slayer. It's definitely member and that might be like the very same case for like Iron Gajeel as well, like certainly like Iron Gajeel having the name that the Iron Dragon Slayer might be due to that Iron Gajeel possibly having slayed like a dragon in like the past especially my doesn't the rush. My doesn't the rush right now as for like how exactly like nothing will do that. So keeping that and which is right now. But and that will be most likely through like as like the fight process like I'm putting like I am getting like I'm putting definitely would be that probably mocking Natsu and Luffy and like like on top of like even and Gajeel has hurting Luffy so much like like and Gajeel even mocking Natsu and making even fun of like Luffy and like the predators and everything and everything like that as well like to take like the already triggered Natsu like raise to like even greater level and then the superior level and then that resulting in like Natsu being Natsu unlocking like even more access like hidden potential and from that resulting in like Naruto like flame power and fury attack like at the flames like burning even brighter with like even greater intensity and like then from that point on like once like Iron Gajeel will be like once like Naruto will be attacking like Iron Gajeel like observing like with like Iron Gajeel's like magical power being that of iron like observing the iron starting to like get heated through like an actual intense flame like the scenario that theory power but at that point is like the scenario that I'm looking at that way like I'm feeling like I am getting seriously getting affected by like every time and that's only making contact with like theory and that is like the scenario that I'm looking at that would be like from that point on about like the fight totally being like one side and then basically and it will totally being offered and defeated by that was selecting the scenario that I'm looking at my thoughts with the same question right now, as for like in that the current fight between like Natsu and Gajeel, like even like with like Natsu right now being extremely impression, he is like Gajeel totally holding his own against like Natsu, like and definitely. So my total impression right now is that basically that Gajeel might not be that interested in part of like being a group like the element for the community of the brain because like I'm like Gajeel might be so silly or confident in his power and I might be totally seeing like himself as like even far superior in terms of like the strength when compared to like the element four. So that this might be the reason for like amplified and that there might be actually some truth to that as well. If you remember correctly, while Arya would be that the strongest element four member like in that still Gajeel would be even stronger than Arya. That's definitely my very impression. So like it might be due to like might be a person thing of Gajeel where like Gajeel might have not wanted to be one of like the element four and be a member of like those elements for that group was definitely one of the embracing. So like maybe it might be due to that reason that I'm looking for like that you might have wanted to like see that independent member of like the fandom guild who's not a part of like any group within like the element or within like the fans guild. So like this might be the important reason for like Gajeel not being part of like the top element for group of like the fandom which is definitely member present. When in actuality Gajeel will be a whole lot stronger than even the strongest member of like the element for RS. Definitely my top three ambition right now. Like the Rainbow like in the past, like if Jose might have that wanted to like create like this like whole group of like the top strongest like members of like individuals of like the fantasy versus the female profession. So like I'm like initially Jose might have had like the name that might have not at all been like element of but like might have been a totally different name. And at that point like Jose might have thought that basically like that he would be able to like also add that Gajeel as well would want to be part of that group. So like I'm looking initially like the name might have been different. So like I'm looking like uh, Joseph might have been calling that group of like strongest members of like the transcript by a different name and might have tried to like add Gajeel as well into that group. But like I'm looking like at that point it might have been Gajeel that who might have been so strongly or confident who might actually be like a whole lot stronger than Arya. So like I'm looking like it might have been Gajil that might have told Jose that basically he doesn't want to be part of like a group and he wants to like stay as independent because like he's so superiorly stronger when compared to like so other four who's like next person the element for them, which definitely what might have happened. So like at that point might have been when like Jose might have only been okay with like Gajil being like an independent member of like the Phantom Theater. And those I might have decided at that point that this is like the coincidentally like the top four strongest members of like after like Gajil of like the fantasy might have all had like elemental based powers like I'm looking like Jose might have at that point decided to like name the group as like element four and might have added the ghost four into that group while they will might have stayed independent might have been what might have happened in the past. Certainly my remember that the new memory ambition right now with like the revelation that basically Gajeel right now has this like weapon called like the sword of like the Iron Dragon like and the like that needs to be like not as well as like the two are like Dragon Slayer like I'm like in the symbol like in the case of Gajeel like I'm like Gajeel might have the dragon that Gajeel might have eliminated and taken the life of might have been an iron dragon. Like, and there might be multiple types of dragons. While in the case of Ignite dragons, that it would be their element would be that of fire. But I'm assuming there will be all different all sorts of different types of dragons and there will be dragons with the power of iron. It's definitely my different. So it might be an iron dragon that basically Gajeel might have totally played in the symbol simply my comprehension. So that might be how the deal might have gave his powers. Like in the case of Natsu, yeah, it was basically Ignite teaching Natsu was theory attacks and powers but in the case of Gajeel it might have been Gajeel playing that Iron Dragon and Gajeel basically somehow using some sort of a magic, gaining its iron based powers might have been what might have happened. It's definitely my good brain. But I'm looking right now, since Gajeel right now has this unique power of the sword of the Iron Dragon. I'm looking Natsu as well. I'm looking great. I'm looking Natsu as well, creating the sword of the fiery dragon, is the sword of Ignite. I'm looking such a weapon I'm looking Natsu probably creating using it fiery magic crafting using theory magic. I'm leaning more toward the model of that happening right now in his current fight against against Gajeel is the possibility that I'm looking for the right end of the impression. The name of the impression right now with the revelation of through the sea of the dragon slayer having the power to transform their bodies to take care of the fix of such dragons. So the name of the impression in the word like fairy tale and in playing a dragon that would have a lot of importance and consequences definitely when and then was once a human slave for the dragon what might happen would be that human would be turning into just having this dragon slayer kind of a transformative power automatically at that moment itself where that human would be able to transform using his will upper playing the dragon that and then would be able to gain the power to basically transform their body into taking care of the dragon automatically the moment they place the dragon. That's definitely my concern but that might be the case with Tiffany. So definitely I'm also putting specifically because of the situation I'm also putting dragon dragons can fly I'm also putting now so definitely unlocking more and more to potential and I'm also making eventually the same future I'm also putting Natsu being able to fly gaining the ability to also fly with such extreme speed a dragon itself playing the scenarios that I'm also bringing and my question very interesting. So and I'm still thinking about the transition that basically since Gajeel have this all this since Gajeel as well look like a dragon player and since Gajeel powers up all iron based transformation of Gajeel's body and everything all iron based I'm the first dragon that Gajeel have might have slayed in the system but might have definitely been an iron type dragon. Definitely my opinion. Such type dragons definitely would exist in the world of the than is definitely my opinion that I'm sitting on. Supplement reimbursements that is in the current stand between the chill versus natural I'm looking natural would be certainly having might be certainly having a slight advantage since natural flame and heat and the chill is iron I'm looking definitely eventually still the remember the mention that eventually natural is theory flame reaching that could be the level of intensity where I'm looking it the heat from natural of but heat from the planes of Natsu being so intense that it would be initially starting on not only heating the iron powers of iron Gajeel, but also starting to even melt the iron powers of iron Gajeel is the scenario that I'm going to find. So definitely I'm also bring in the current fight between Gajeel and Natsu is only having that type advantage against the team is definitely my primary impression. But I'm also it's definitely I'm also bring actually Natsu facing off against dragon slayer, other dragon slayers with who would be having a type advantage even against Natsu the scenario that I'm looking since Natsu a theory fire dragon slayer I'm looking there different there might exist water element based dragons as well out there in the world the fair dynamics of new and so the considering maybe for Natsu this are fighting off against water dragon slayer in like terms and of this like also like about the risk that I'm delivering and my comprehension person. You know the real person right now was like Gajeel right now telling Natsu how this like theory power won't even create a scratch against like Gajeel's steel and iron like I'm definitely right now that Gajeel is totally unaware of like how like seriously high intense like flames and theory power can like melt all that steel and iron. And I'm wondering definitely that would like happen as like the fight between like Natsu and between purposes for the and like the scenario that I'm living and that being like the ultimate shock for Gajeel. And I'm looking like it being only at that point that Gajeel would be even realizing that. And until that point, like Gajeel would only assuming and thinking that basically he has like the steel has and iron has like the advantage against like the flames of like Natsu. But like I'm looking it would be only at that point that mentally would be Natsu would be unlocking like pro potential in like the person that using that intense flame that once like this like tough steel wood and iron will be starting to like melt it to be that into the shock for like Sheffield. And it will be only at that point that Sheffield would be like even talking and realizing that this entire time like he was at disadvantage against like the flame, the steel, the tough steel was like already at like a disadvantage right from like the start against like the theory planes of like Natsu. It's like the eventual scenario that I'm talking about the bring and not frameless. So like the minimum presentation right now is for like the great number of shades of like Jose basically combining and turning into like a giant shade and like drawing like the fairy space. Like I'm the definitely I'm the that the giant shade I'm the definitely will be eventually completely obliterating and destroying like the fairy tale basis like the scenario that I'm bring and definitely, I'm looking like while like the giant shade will be like destroying in the process of like slowly destroying like the various skill builds. Like at that point, I'm looking like all those great number of skills would be like doing their just to like stop and shooting out all of their attacks and trying to like stop that giant shade. But like all of their attempts like only failing. Like the scenario that I'm looking, that giant shade will be like so friendly for that like the scenario that I'm looking. And I'm looking like while things will be like totally looking hopeless and that's like those great number of field members that would be totally like feeling as if like all hope is like lost. Like at that point is when I'm like Loki would be throwing up. Just like the scenario that I'm by then like Loki would have totally got back his like confidence and basically Loki would have defeated those two henchmen of like the pencil and I'm building like Loki, making it all the way to like the area of like the characters with this and they are like I'm doing like it will be through Loki that I'm looking like the remaining great number of characters getting their confidence and hope up and I'm looking like them all collectively attacking like the giant shade like reach up and I'm looking like Loki's like Loki will be handling something unique power using it with like I'm looking like usually I'm looking like them to be like doing Loki like leading like that attack and like Loki doing some significant extent of like the damage to like that giant shade like the scenario that I'm bring. And about the like yet like my other impressions that like eventually ask like how like the giant shade would be stopped. Like I'm preferring to possibly either through Loki like help like I'm looking them all collectively getting that moral boost and I'm looking like using that like I'm looking like them all like finally only one boring and defeating that giant shade of like 1% that I'm delivering. What like the best possible that I'm looking is for like Loki leading that attack and basically that like them causing like significant extent of like a damage to like the giant shade but like still Amber like the giant shade is still not being defeated and like it's only getting brought down and stopped like the giant shade only getting stopped once like Jose will be like getting badly injured and which will be according to my comprehension that will be once like eventually like and Natsu will be fighting off against like Jose after like defeating the team like Natsu fighting off against Jose in an enraged manner on seeing like a matter of just rising by Jose and this that Natsu embraced manner like fighting against Jose, and yet like Jose still overpowering and defeating Natsu, and that Jose will be able to take Natsu's like that wish of woman going up and like launching an unexpected attack against like Jose, which would be like what like I'm simple thing would be like badly and extremely injuring Jose like the scenario that I'm in. So like I then as Jose would be retreating that giant shade as well would be like leader is like the scenario that I was doing. That's like the other possibility through which like I was doing like the giant shade uh being of like Joseph would be getting stopped from the line because like the scenario that I'm doing but still I'm doing like by then like the giant shade would have done more than enough damage to like the fairy tale skill case that like it will be like almost like 90% of like the fairy tale skill case will be like thoroughly destroyed by then. It's like the scenario that I'm supposed to bring, and that way, like I'm supposed to like it to be like a symbolic representation of like a new start and like a new beginning through like macros that and like with like that with the woman like basically this woman like replacing macro and becoming like the new master of like the fairy shift as well as like the fairy skill base which will be like almost completely destroyed like will be once again rebuilt according to her instructions and all of like basically temporary building like the fairy skill base even stronger than before. It's like the scenario that I'm looking. So like that way like a new beginning like being symbolized through such a manner is like collectively through such a manner for like the perfect being collectively happening through such a manner like in the scenarios that I'm just like I'm as a frame. So like the meaning my decision right now with like Natsu and Gajeel like right now taking to like the skies and basically having that aerial battle like and like right now one of the revolutions are like on top of like Natsu already having like the right advantage of fire against like iron and steel and like on top of that like I'm doing right now since like the climate is like, right now like the present is like a sunny day like I'm doing even like the sun rays like the rays from like sun as well would be totally even more of like an advantage to like this need to and I'm going to natural theory power like I'm looking like totally absorbing like the heat of like the rays of like the sun totally like increasing like the intensity of like natural like theory power on top of like the already existing power of natural theory power like natural like the scenario that I'm looking at. So like I'm looking at with that collective power of like natural theory power coupled with like the sun's heat like I'm looking like natural theory power like increasing to way greater levels and like with that would be how like I'm like during that aerial battle like NATO would be like starting to like NATO's theory power heat slowly starting to like melt like the iron getting like iron power reflecting in the scenario that I was bringing a very impression that I'm sitting on it. That made me very impression right now with like the revelation that basically the violent players can basically power up and restore their energy by eating their respective elements. Like I'm going to bring that heavily with like they're just right now eating iron and then be powering up like I was bringing definitely that the fight once again I was bringing that so to be like taking like the one fight between like Natsu and getting like I'm putting once again like turning into like even then once again taking it to like the sky once again and at that point I was like Naruto totally soaking up all that sun rays and everything like that way like Naruto as well getting that whole like energy boost and like health restoration and everything happening for like Naruto as well through like the sun rays of like things with scenario that is sitting on the another fringe. So like the game of the frame person right now with that Lucy having a lot of celestial keys earlier due to that so we are like I'm definitely during the scenario that Amazon is like once before current war against like the Palestinians will be that fight will be over. Like at that point, Amazon wanting it to be not like a Loki that would be like bringing Lucy up self to peace to Lucy, like in the scenario that Amazon Loki who had such an extreme disturbance kind of like a situation against like some sort of like a disturbance against like celestial wizard. Like I'm looking like Loki, I'm looking currently in this like fight. Like I'm looking like Loki totally so that has like current fight against like the kind of your henchmen. Like I'm looking like Loki is only overcoming all that disturbance the tension towards like celestial wizards. And I'm looking like that. Eventually, I'm looking once the fight will be over, it will be like Loki that bringing and giving Loki that felt the piece of like Loki that she had lost definitely and since then like I'm super like Loki would be that totally not showing any sort of indifference towards like Loki from that point on. It's definitely my personal impression. Yeah, like, definitely my personal impression right now is for like Loki right now putting Sagittarius herself still spirit like Sagittarius yeah, without making a contract like Amber and that definitely I'm putting Sagittarius definitely even though it's like of course, after like like still it's possibly being able to like help like Natsu out. It's definitely one of the ambitions. Natsu and do the out of like scenario that I'm going to and maybe it would be through like another like Sagittarius possibly having like even though it won't be able to like shoot fire as it is right now, but like I'm going to like Sagittarius, like I'm going to like Lucy possibly coming up like the idea to like take Sagittarius to like the ceiling, like the to the very top of like the castle of like the fantasy and basically from there like uh by having like the rays of like sun that that by having like Sagittarius get exposed to like the rays of the sun like I'm wondering maybe like Sagittarius would be able to that way that shoot fire uh, to shoot far like the possibility that I'm looking that way, like I'm looking like Sagittarius, like shooting far from the force of like the building to like, towards like Natsu, maybe like that way, like Natsu consuming like those like fiery flame arrows and like maybe that way like Natsu is getting that the energy boost and the power of there is also kind of like a remote possibility that I'm like anyway like the flame for instance that like definitely since like Lucius right now brought Sagittarius without like making a contract with like Sagittarius and I think that could definitely have that a permanent consequence involving in the connecting to those is especially microscopic pressure. So that's also like an envisioned possible scenario that I'm also not different friends. So definitely no different pressure right now. It's more like Natsu right now remembering like the past like macro telling Natsu about like why their greatest call there it is it's about like where is like uncertainty of like whether it's existing or not and really about like eternal pain, eternal adventure. Like I'm definitely I'm putting like in the word of it where it is and like I'm looking definitely where it's good impact definitely genuinely exists in definitely my friends. So like I'm putting like there is like even like that huge great number of fairies will be existing in like a fairy kind of a realm in like the world of figurative and like there will be like a fairy realm out there and I was wondering there like fairies would like genuinely exist in the feeling of preemption and I'm looking like Natsu and Crow like I'm looking like definitely that their adventures like I'm looking like not being just like solely in like the human world alone like I'm looking like literally like I'm looking like all sorts of like their adventure I'm looking like it will be leading them to like basically just like into like accessing like fairy realms like the scenario that I'm living in. I'm to make them slowly like at that point like traveling from like the human world to like the fairy realm and I'm like in the fairy realm like I'm living like the like villainous kind of like fairies as well as like the good fairies as well. And like Natsu and through like in-depth system are like saving like the good fairies and waging war against like the villanistic fairies and defeating like those villanistic fairies like the scenarios that I'm remembering. And I'm remembering by then like even though Macro won't be around to like see that like the scenario that I'm remembering. Definitely I'm remembering Macro like because I'm just remembering without the great itself like I'm remembering like the Macro would be like ending of time and it will most likely by Joseph and like the scenario that I'm remembering. So even though in that point, like the skeptics are violent, like Natsu and so she like making it to like the fairy realm and like finding out the truth that like fairies actually do exist. And the city at that point, I was like Natsu to be once again remembering Macro and like wishing and would be like wishing that Macro was around to like see this and all that like the scenario that I'm doing. So like definitely I'm remembering that way in like a fairy realm member like a war between like Natsu and Bro and like the army of like the good fairies against like and even bigger army of like villains like fairies. There's a war happening in like with civilians, definitely my opinion. So according to my picture, I'm just definitely putting in that it's confused of scenario where like I'm looking naturally usually making it feel like it's like fairy element solving that mystery to like whether fairy exists or not. Like and I'm looking like at that point I'm looking like in that fairy realm like I'm looking like all the fairies in like the fairy realm will be having coincidentally solely by sheer coincidence like I'm doing like all the fairies in like that fairy realm also having like a tail. It's definitely my popular answer. But moving into the right now, for like right now in like Natsu's memory of like the distant past, like this, when Natsu was only a child, like basically while Natsu that like everyone in like the fairy tale is like family, right? And since like was standing there smiling, like definitely my other ambitions were like basically that will only a foreshadowing to like basically regardless of how ever like Laxus acts in like a rude manner and as if he doesn't care like deep down he genuinely would care deep down. It's also definitely my very much so like I'm like that and that would be like that's the reason for like macro with it only knowing that like even while like will be acting out in like a careless manner like I'm like a macro deep down would be like if it makes sense that basically that could not within like it's definitely my very much so like I'm like after like Mara had basically phoned like and I had sort of help like Amazon, even though like acted out in like a careless manner, which like definitely Mara might have totally bought and hence like Mara was like it was like that. But like Amazon like the actuality of the situation might have been like as soon as that after that plot itself like Amazon like might have only straight away quickly gathered up like all of like the other senior members of like the period and like I'm yet like I'm they might be coincidentally or at like far away location from that Magnolia, especially when the surrenders. So like they might be rushing and like trying to like make it to like the period gives this location right now towards like Magnolia right now is definitely my perspective. It might be precisely because of like them being at such an extremely far away location that like it might be taking them all this time to like make it to like the to Magnolia right now. It's definitely my preamble. So definitely my preamble right now is also like the possibility that basically about the like definitely like macro showing up and like macro so he's sacrificing like to like save like Gray, Elfman, and Mara, and Abza from Joseph that I was like in the scenario that I was like, and at that point I was wondering definitely that the whole Natsu was like Joseph fight happening and that which stop showing up and trying to and which stop showing up and I was like that which stop whom I'm looking for like would be like saving Natsu from like dying by the hands of like Joseph. Yet like I'm looking right now for like the which stop well still to like struggle against like Joseph's like overwhelming like even that point of that scenario that I'm expecting. And I was like at that point I was like yeah like I was like that with the woman like dealing a significant extent of like damage to like Joseph. But still like Joseph was pursuing the hospital response. So like I'm looking like at that point as like Joseph possibly will be about to take even like the life of like that with the woman maybe to be at that point that I was like that as well as like messages as well as like the other three, I think that remaining senior members of like the heritage they will be all collectively showing up in an extremely enraged manner because like by the time they will be showing up, they will be seeing like their home destroyed, like the heritage will face destroyed. So like I'm giving them in an extremely enraged manner, which is charging in towards like the standard giant phantom base where like Jose will be, and at that point, Dragon was like Jose like totally finally feeling that absolute fear and Nichols are totally retreating and escaping and running for his life and really escaping such a in such a manner like the in such scenario that I'm looking for the correct and necessary impression. Definitely my necessary impression is that like at that point I'm looking like even though like they will be like I'm looking there for them like conducting like the funeral for like macro and after that like I'm looking like that the stop woman like taking the place of like macro as like the new master of like the dynamics like according to her order of like come to different like for all like the creative skill members like including like the senior creative skill member even the super like as well come to them like at that point would be all passionately rebuilding that creative skill live from scratch once again is like the even tougher and stronger than before. It's like the scenario that I'm also and my 300. Minimum 300% right now and about like the fairy tales because like having this thing where like they believe they point their index finger to like the sky. And I'm wondering exactly that would be like them showing unity among like the fairy tales with the third case members is definitely not the dimension. And I'm wondering like it might have been coincidentally started by macro and which like the remaining guild members might not only follow doing that by raising that index finger to the sky. But like I'm looking at that point only eventually have index simply just have a lot of relevance. Just like the scenario that I'm serving, especially because like their skill name itself is like the fairy tale skill base and like since like as I'm definitely putting like interesting feature like I'm looking like that exactly like how they all point index finger to the sky like I'm looking like that very real example is only according to accessible to the on the sky, like beyond like the sky, like and the or like somewhere high up in the sky would be where like the fairy real would be, and in that way, like this whole index finger pointing to the sky thing will like eventually end up instantly just having a lot of relevance where like this entire time points only without being aware of that they were this entire time showing the unity of like the fairy tale here by pointing their index finger to the sky where like the fairy real was uh, has had been existing this like entire time would be along the lines of like an important like the pointing of like finger to the sky by the fairy tale here happening and having inductions into the necessary ambition. Like the necessary ambition right now as for like and also right now seeing how like this home of like the fairy tale is like basically where they have all those like precious memory that they have treasured all this time that they are right now being having been completely destroyed. Like I'm like Namco right now I'm considering turning into that kind of like a mindset where like Nasu will be like I'm considering right now even temporarily maybe even forgetting about Lucy because like I'm considering seeing that scope of like seeing that just like purchase priorities is being destroyed, like I'm saying, causing Natsu to like have a change in his mindset as to like basically as it like he has like absolutely nothing more to do in his life would be along the lines of like a mindset that I'm putting right now. Not only Natsu, but like I'm like all the remaining favorite team members as well. That's like outside, like in front of like their favorite skill case, like I'm like them all like basically that ending up having that shift in their mindset into such a mindset, and I'm like all the fairy tale team members like fighting in like a totally different manner, like them solely having that extreme shift in like their mindset in which like how they would be fighting from that point on. And I was from like but like them having that feeling as if like they have absolutely nothing to lose at this point, like I'm them totally giving it like them all like possibly collectively like unlock the true potential, and they because of that like I'm putting like, that giant shade that being destroyed with like exceptionally powered like magical attack by those great number of players and members. Loki as well making it there. And Loki as well like attacking together and them taking out like the shade, like the scenario was the scenario that I'm dealing right now. And then he's bringing like as well like the fight between Natsu as well as like Gajeel like on the screen. Definitely Natsu as well like come to like that shock resulting in like Natsu as well feeling as like he has absolutely nothing to lose, and basically Natsu like basically with that absolute an extremely absolute worthless man or like I'm doing like now. So probably at that point like and I'm looking for like that feeling of like basically that's like him having absolutely nothing to lose at all. That feeling and that mindset totally unlocking like that hidden powerful potential lying within Natsu as well, which would be that igniting Natsu's flame beyond that two-way higher superior levels than that of that Gajeel. And I'm bring from that point on like the fight is only being one side of it like Natsu totally easily crushing and overpowering and defeating Gajeel is like the scenario that I'm going to talk about. And that the different like Gajeel not only having his like ego getting destroyed, but like I'm different like Natsu only in like it's kind of like an extremely dark kind of like a mindset where like Natsu would be like even about to take Gajeel like but like I'm different like at that point. The different like most likely to be like Lucy shouting towards like Natsu that would be like chatting Natsu out and preventing Natsu from taking the slides. It's also like a possibility that I'm going to do everything and that's a reimbursement. So the feeling of the reimbursement right now has got like Lucy's like self spirit like Sagittarius like saluting to like the sky as well as like wearing those like post costumes that covers the like entire body and only like those space again like I'm different like definitely like the act both of that would be like totally connected is definitely not the question because like I'm looking like the exact reason might lead you to that the person's Sagittarius like this with Sagittarius like its actual nature would be like he might be actually of like an extremely shy nature which he might be trying and which might be the reason for like him not even being able to like look Lucy in her face and fellow Lucy in her face so like him saluting to the sky and that's late in the other towards like the definitely never said and him like totally hiding in that thought costume as well could be all due to like Sagittarius deep down actually being like growth extremely shy. Of would be of like that's an extremely shy nature, especially my book very impression, which about which like I'm looking like and Lucy probably finding out in like the research like in the scenario that I'm looking at.